Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your being here. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to visit with you. All of you are aware of the fact that President Trump has made very clear that one of the most urgent things that needs to happen is humanitarian aid into Gaza. And he has tasked all of his team to do everything possible to accelerate that and to, as expeditiously as possible, get humanitarian aid into the people. So today we are announcing that that process is ongoing. It is launched. Many of you may be aware that yesterday at the State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce outlined some general parameters. Those are ongoing. What I would just remind everyone is that there are certain key elements that the President has made clear to all of us as this process gets underway. The first is that food be distributed efficiently, but also that it's distributed safely inside Gaza to the people who desperately need it. The other factor, and this is an important one, that all of this be done in a way so that Hamas is not able to get their hands on it. Previous actions have often been met with Hamas stealing the food that was intended for hungry people. Nobody is interested in helping Hamas because Hamas has taken food that was intended to help very desperate citizens and stolen it from them, sold it on the black market, and then took the money to buy weaponry to murder more people. The last thing Gaza needs is to have more people murdered, more people killed, and Hamas is 100% responsible for the horrific situation that has continued to exist there. They could have ended all of this October the 8th of 2023, but they have chosen to continue to hold hostages. They've continued to starve their people. They've continued to make it very difficult for any conclusion to this horrific war to end. And there still remains a desperate need for humanitarian aid that Hamas is obviously not capable or willing to provide, because they'd rather take any supplies that go into Gaza and use it for their own nefarious purposes rather than to see children and other people fed. This effort will involve a notable amount of effort, and it is going to require the partnership not only of governments but of NGOs, charitable organizations, nonprofits from around the world. There are several partners who have already agreed to be a part of the effort. We're not prepared to name them as of yet because some of the details of their participation are being worked out. But the happy news is to report that there has been a good initial response. That response will only get stronger as we are able to start standing up the resources, moving the supplies into Gaza. There have been some news reports that are wholly inaccurate that have said that this is an Israeli plan. I want to say the Israelis are going to be involved in providing necessary military security because it is a war zone. But they will not be involved in the distribution of the food or even in the bringing of the food into Gaza. Their role will remain on the perimeter as is necessary to make sure that those who are bringing the food in and who are distributing the food are kept safe and out of harm's way in the midst of a war zone. The Israelis are supportive. Any allegation that the Israelis don't care about humanitarian aid is absolutely false. They care very much about humanitarian aid getting into Gaza, but they also care very much that Hamas doesn't steal that aid. But that is a view that is shared by the President and by all of us at the United States because we truly want this to be a humanitarian effort, not an effort that we are ashamed of. In the coming days, there will be a lot more details that will be released and distributed. There are nonprofit organizations that will be a part of the leadership and the logistical concerns, and I'm sure you can imagine there are many. A lot of challenges to be able to make this work. To feed what will initially be perhaps over 1 million people and ultimately 2 million people requires an extraordinary amount of planning and execution of the plan. So I will happy to take questions related to this topic. I may not have answers for you, but I'll be honest and tell you if I don't have the answers. Yes.
Hi, Lisa Rozovsky from Haaretz. Is the distribution dependent on a ceasefire, or will it start regardless of the ceasefire? And if so, when is it due to start?
The humanitarian aid will not depend on anything other than our ability to get the food into Gaza. So it's not dependent upon other things regarding military action. As to when it will start, we all would hope the answer to that is very soon, but I can't give you an exact date.
Patrick Kingsley, New York Times. We understand the structure of this process will involve 4 or 5 distribution zones, which will be guarded at the perimeter by the IDF, but inside it will be private aid workers, and that they will distribute each zone to roughly 300,000, 350,000 people each. Can you confirm those details? And second of all, do you have a response to the UN concerns that this would potentially put civilians in danger because they would be coming through IDF lines, and also that it would force a lot of people to walk quite a long way, maybe up to 5, 10, 15 miles potentially, and that would be a logistical challenge for them?
That's a lot of questions for one question. I'm not sure I can cover all of them, not sure that I will remember them all, but let me do my best. First of all, there will be private security that will be responsible for ensuring the safety of the workers, both getting into the distribution centers and then in the distribution itself. When I said the IDF will not be involved in that point of distribution, they will be involved in keeping the perimeter safe. And they're the only ones who can do that. And I want to reiterate again, the Israelis are supportive of this program. They want it to happen, but they're not operating it. And that's important because there are some entities that would not want to participate if they thought that this was an IDF operation. It is not. It is a humanitarian operation that was initiated by the President and his mandate for us to get aid into the people who most desperately need it, but to do it in such a way as to not let Hamas control it. You mentioned the distribution points. There are initial number of distribution points. Those will be scaled up as soon as it is possible, so that that is not the total number, that is the initial number, and that number will increase as the scalability is capable. And I'm trying to remember, was there another 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 questions in that?
Yes.
Yes.
The criticism from the United Nations is that this would endanger some Gazan civilians because A, it would force them to go through IDF lines to reach this food,
Yes.
and second of all, at the moment they say there are 400 distribution points. This would reduce it to 4 or 5 points, meaning that people would have to walk a long way. That's difficult. It would put vulnerable people in potentially more vulnerability.
Let me address the last question first. The logistical planning of this has indicated that there will not be that long a distance to get to the distribution points. So that is not accurate. And as far as the UN saying that they are concerned about the danger, the greatest danger, the most important danger, is people starving to death. There's the danger. We're going to have security. There will be security both at the distribution points provided by the contractors that will be engaged to do that. There will also be security parameters built by the IDF, again, at a distance from the distribution point to protect them from the ongoing calculus of the war. But let's be real clear what the danger is. The danger is not doing anything. We call upon the United Nations, we call upon every NGO, we call upon every government, especially those who have been saying, why don't you do something? Why isn't something being done? Well, something is being done. So we invite people who have been concerned about it to join in this process. I will be the first to admit it will not be perfect, especially in the early days. It's a logistical challenge to make this work and to make it work well. But all of the partners, both the donors as well as those who will carry out the operation, are committed to getting it launched and making it work better as we go along. Yes.
Sorry, a few questions. Regards to private security,
We'll get the mic over there. Hold on just a sec. Thank you.
Alexander Cornwall from Reuters. With regards to the private security that you mentioned, are these military contractors? What will be the rules of engagement? The second question is on funding. Who will be contributing to the funds? Will Israel, will the Gulf states, will the United States be funding this? Thank you.
Answer to your questions, I don't know, and I don't know. And it's not that I don't know some things, but I don't know some things that I can disclose at this time because there is a lot of moving parts that are still moving. So you've asked about rules of engagement. Not able to answer that right now. Everything will be done in accordance to international law, but I can't give you the specifics of that. And as far as, I think there was another part of the question regarding the funding. The funding will come from every source that we can receive. As I said, there are some people who have already committed to helping fund. They don't want to be disclosed as of yet. When they do, we'll announce them, or they'll announce themselves. But we hope that every entity, whether it's a government or an NGO or a nonprofit or just private citizens, will find a way to help in this effort, and that's what we hope to be able to do. Greg? Hi. Good to see you, Greg.
Greg Palcott, Fox News. Let me juggle these microphones. You hold that? Fine. A question, please, Mr. Ambassador, and a follow-up, if I might. Does this humanitarian plan have anything to do with the plan that was revealed through Israeli sources last Sunday, which was pretty well criticized by the UN and other humanitarian agencies? And the follow-up is, as you noted, U.S. has a big role. In the immediate area, Israel has less of a role. Is the Trump administration now trying to work around the government of Prime Minister Netanyahu? You yourself last night said that the Israeli government did not have to be notified of the U.S. Houthi deal. There are discussions going on right now between Iran and the U.S. and intermediaries, Saudi Arabia, even Hamas, and we know that President Trump is not stopping here next week. Are you trying to work around the Israeli governments on a range of issues?
Absolutely not. I think any characterization of that would be completely, absolutely untrue. There is an incredibly close relationship between the U.S. and Israel that continues, and I think even my comments may have been taken a little out of context. The rest of that story was the United States doesn't have to tell Israel everything it's going to do. Here's the second part that I said. Israel doesn't have to tell us everything they're going to do. It's a sovereign nation. We respect that. So there's no issue here that there's some kind of workaround going on. I wanted to make clear that this is not, and this is where the news story that was reported last week was really off the mark. This is not an IDF or an Israeli operation. That would cause some potential partners to say we don't want to be involved. The Israelis' role, and it's a significant one in helping provide security, but they're not operating the distribution. They're not operating the bringing of the food in or the distribution of the food when it gets into Gaza. They share the same concerns we do to make sure that Hamas doesn't have any of it. Absolutely, we don't see there being any roadblock at all. The relationship is, I think the word is often used here, ironclad. That's the operative word. I would say that that word is still operative, very much so. The level of cooperation between the United States and Israel is one that is not recent. It goes back for decades through Democrat, Republican administrations. It is one that has transcended every kind of situation that happens in the Middle East because it's important to both countries. So there is not an issue, and I want to make that incredibly clear. There is no sense of conflict or issue of separation between the long-standing alliance between the United States and Israel. And the President has made that clear. I'm here to work for him and to carry his message, and that's been his message without any equivocation. I think I was asking you, yes?
Yeah. Laser Berman from the Times of Israel. Good to see you again. Two quick questions. What's your assessment of the state of starvation in the Gaza Strip? There's been allegations. And number two, it seems like this plan is contingent on the IDF being deep in the Gaza Strip. If there is indeed a ceasefire, let's say in the next week, it'll probably involve IDF troops having to pull back to small buffer zones. would this plan be able to go forward, or how would you stop Hamas from getting the aid if indeed the IDF pulls back? Thank you.
I think any ceasefire, and again, I'm just speculating, but any ceasefire still requires security, and there's not a matter of just saying everything's going to be fine and we're going to build campfires and sing Kumbaya with marshmallows being toasted. That's not going to happen in Gaza anytime soon. So the focus is going to be get the food, get it to the people who are hungry, keep it away from Hamas. It's really that simple. And how we make that happen is going to be the really challenging part of what happens over the next few days and weeks. I'll take two more questions. I'll take yours, and then I'll go back over here, okay? I should have done yours first because the microphone was closer, but I want to be as efficient as government cannot be, and that's what I'm here to do. Yes, sir.
Ambassador Huckabee, Jeremy Diamond, CNN. Thank you so much. First of all, just to follow up on Lazar, he asked you what your assessment is of the state of starvation and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Do you acknowledge that there is a humanitarian crisis in Gaza right now?
If there wasn't a humanitarian crisis, there wouldn't be an effort to try to deal with it. So the answer is obviously yes, there is a humanitarian crisis. That's why we need a humanitarian aid program going in. And it's also why it needs to involve all of the people of the world, government, non-government, non-profit, everyone who has been saying there's a crisis. I expect them to step up and to now join the effort to resolve it. To the degree to which that crisis exists, I personally cannot answer that. It would have to be someone who is closer to the situation directly there.
At best, about 60% of Gaza's population would be fed by this program. What about the other 40%?
Everything is planned to be scaled up. You have to start somewhere. And the somewhere feeds an enormous level of the people of Gaza. And then it scales up from there.
But they don't have time to wait, do they?
Well, I don't know. Right now they've been waiting a long time thanks to Hamas and their efforts to keep their people starving. I wish Hamas would decide that they wanted their people to have more food and would quit stealing it. And if that would happen, we would be further along than we already are. Now we're having to work around the threats that they pose to the aid workers that will be going in. It's why we have one of the big logistical challenges of making sure that we can secure their routes in, their routes out, and while they're on the ground in Gaza.
And then just in terms of the wider picture, sir, to what extent, how important is it to President Trump that there be some kind of a ceasefire by the end of his visit next week, and how much pressure are you and the administration bringing to bear on Israel to make that happen?
I think the ceasefire is really dependent upon, is Hamas going to release hostages? Why do we still have 59 people who are hostages in Gaza? We don't know the exact number. I've seen estimates of 21 that are alive. Why are they still there? Why haven't they been released? How come it has been this long, more than twice as long as hostages were held in Tehran in 1979? And many of us are old enough to remember that. Some of you may not be, but I am. Why and how long must these hostages be tortured inside these tunnels before Hamas decides that they're going to let them go? And I just can't emphasize enough, we are here today with a crisis, not because of Israel. We are here today because of Hamas. They've initiated the crisis, they have prolonged the crisis, and they have exacerbated the crisis. And I hope the entire world, no matter where they are and what they believe, would join in a unison of condemnation for what Hamas has done to innocent civilian people, that they murdered, that they've tortured, that they've raped, that they have beheaded. This is where the responsibility lies, and I don't ever want us to forget that. Final question right here. Final question.
Ambassador Mike, Barak from I-24 News. I wanted to ask you about there are many voices in Israel that oppose to that plan to send humanitarian aid to Gaza. And looking at the reports about the civil nuclear plant for Saudi Arabia, there is a concern that Israel maybe will be left behind. Maybe President Trump is favoring much more of the U.S. interest than the Israeli ones. Can you comment on that?
I don't know that I understood all of the question, but I think the essence of it was, is the United States sort of backing away? Is that a fair assessment of it? I think the answer to that is an emphatic no. This is a president who has done more to stand with Israel than any president in American history. When Harry Truman made the first recognition of Israel in 1948, 11 minutes after Ben Gurion declared the State of Israel, That was a significant moment and a historic moment when America launched this partnership. It has been strong through every administration. It has been strong through every political party, and it remains strong today. But under President Trump, it has never been stronger. And that is true when you see the many actions he's taken, whether it was the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of the Jewish state, whether it was the moving of the embassy, whether it was the recognition of the Golan Heights, but even more recently, since he's taken office just a couple of months ago, he immediately took away what had been a previous administration's embargo about providing necessary tools and ammunition to the Israelis to fight the war. And so the president has been consistent in his support and in his partnership, and I have no reason to believe that that won't continue. I appreciate your all coming. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll continue to update you as we have more information to do so. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.